Why words matter, the invisible power that shapes connection. Imagine this for a moment. You're scrolling through your phone, drowning in notifications, work emails, group chats, reminders, all the noise that fills our days. But then something stops you. A message appears on your screen, not asking for your attention, but giving it. It's unexpected, thoughtful, and somehow feels like it was written just for you. You read it again, maybe even smile. And suddenly, amidst all the chaos, there's clarity. A quiet moment where someone made you feel seen, heard, and valued. That's the power of words. Not just any words, but intentional ones. In today's fast-paced digital world, we often underestimate how much weight a single message can carry. We send texts, they're seen, and within seconds, forgotten, or so we think. But here's the truth. When crafted with care, a well-thought-out message doesn't just disappear into the void. It lingers, it echoes, it becomes more than words, it becomes an experience. This isn't about manipulation or trying to game the system. This is about mindfulness, about understanding that every word you type carries energy, emotion, and meaning. And if you want to build deeper connections, especially romantic ones, you need to understand why what you say matters, why how you say it matters, and most importantly, why saying it at the right time can leave an indelible mark on someone's heart. Let me tell you a story. Shi Heng Yi once said, "Communication is the bridge between two souls." Think about that for a second. Every text, every note, every conversation is an opportunity to either strengthen that bridge or let it crumble under the weight of thoughtlessness. So how do you ensure your messages don't just pass through unnoticed? How do you make sure they land, not just in her inbox, but in her mind, her memory, her soul? The answer lies in emotional intelligence, presence, and authenticity. Let's dive deeper. In modern relationships, communication has become both easier and harder than ever before. Easier because technology allows us to connect instantly from anywhere in the world. Harder because paradoxically, the sheer volume of messages we exchange dilutes their impact. Most people treat texting like a transactional activity. You send something out, expect a response, and move on. But real connection doesn't happen that way. Real connection happens when you disrupt the noise with intentionality. Think about the last time you received a message that truly stood out. What made it memorable? Was it the words themselves, or was it the feeling behind them? Chances are it wasn't perfection in grammar or flashy emojis. It was resonance. It was the sense that whoever sent it took the time to think about you, not superficially, but deeply. They tapped into your emotional wavelength and spoke directly to your heart. Here's the thing, women, neurologically speaking, are wired for connection. Studies in interpersonal neurobiology show that women tend to process emotions using both hemispheres of the brain. This means they're incredibly attuned to tone, nuance, and subtext. When you send a message that shows you've been paying attention, that you remember the little things she mentioned in passing, you're doing more than communicating. You're showing her that you value her, that you see her, and that level of attentiveness, it's rare, it's magnetic. But let's be clear, this isn't about being poetic or overly articulate. You don't need to write sonnets or craft elaborate metaphors. What you need is clarity, sincerity, and presence. Before you hit send, ask yourself, am I offering her something that adds value to her day? Or am I just asking for attention? Because here's the truth. Attention given with depth is 10 times more attractive than attention requested without meaning. So how do you create a message that resonates? Let's break it down. First, personalization. Personalization is simple, yet profoundly powerful. It could be referencing something she said offhand during your last conversation. It could be recalling an inside joke or acknowledging a detail she shared about her life. These small acts of remembrance signal emotional maturity. They show her that you're not just hearing her, you're listening. And that difference, it's everything. Next, emotional specificity. Saying I miss you is nice, but saying I keep hearing your laugh in my head and it's making this whole day feel warmer than it should is visceral. Why does this matter? Because memory is tied to emotional intensity. The more vivid and specific your language, the more likely it is to stick in her mind. You're not just sending a message, you're planting a thought that grows into an emotion that lingers long after she's closed her phone. Finally, timing. Timing is a subtle art, but when done right, it can feel almost cinematic. Imagine she's having a hectic day, stressed, overwhelmed, barely keeping it together. Then, her phone lights up with a message that doesn't demand her energy, but offers her calm. Something as simple as, "I don't know what today is throwing at you, but I hope you're remembering how powerful you are." That lands differently, not because of the words alone, but because it shows attunement. You're anticipating her needs before she even voices them. That's psychological intimacy. Now here's the kicker. None of this works if it's performative. Women have an uncanny ability to sense the difference between words designed to elicit a reaction and words rooted in sincerity. She might not be able to articulate it, but she'll feel it. And when a message feels safe, when it feels like it came from a grounded place, it bypasses her defenses. It doesn't just get read, it gets felt. And that's the whole point. In a world saturated with digital noise, attention has become a currency. But emotional relevance, that's what makes a message unforgettable. It's not about being clever, it's about being clear. It's not about saying something new, it's about saying something true. And truth, especially when delivered with tenderness, lingers. So the next time you sit down to write a message, don't just think about what you want to say. Think about what you want her to feel when she reads it. Do you want her to feel seen, understood, cherished? If you can answer that question with honesty and precision, you won't need to second-guess yourself. You'll know you're not just writing to her, you're reaching her. And the message that reaches her heart is the one she'll carry in her mind. Let's take it a step further. It's one thing to send a message with thought and precision. It's another to send a message that speaks her emotional language. I'm not talking about saying, "I love you" or "I miss you" in a more poetic way. I'm talking about truly understanding the emotional blueprint that shapes how she receives, processes, and internalizes what you say. Because if you're not speaking her language, you're just making noise, even if it's well-intentioned. We all have different emotional dialects. Some people crave words of affirmation, others respond to acts of service, shared experiences, humor, or even silence at the right time. For a woman to feel emotionally connected, she needs to feel understood without having to over-explain, and that requires awareness. Emotional intelligence isn't just about identifying your own feelings. It's about perceiving hers and responding in a way that respects, supports, and resonates with her state of being. When you speak her emotional language, you do more than send a message. You create a moment that lives not just in her phone, but in her body, her memory, her emotional archive. And that's what makes you unforgettable. Because the man who makes her feel deeply understood, even in silence, is the man she'll never have to ask twice to remember. Now, let's bring this full circle. Understanding the power of words is only half the equation. What happens after the message is equally important. Too many people believe that the message itself is enough, but a beautiful message with no follow-through is like a promise written on water. It feels good in the moment, but it disappears the second it's tested. If you want her to think about you all day, it's not just about what you say, it's about what you do next. A message that lingers in her mind becomes a seed. But a seed needs consistency, warmth, and care if it's going to grow. That's where presence turns into impact. What sets a man apart isn't just his words, it's how those words align with his actions. That alignment builds emotional credibility. It tells her, "I'm not here for the high of your attention. I'm here for the truth of your experience." When your message isn't just a spark but the start of a pattern, she starts to believe you're not just passing through her life, you're showing up for it. Consistency without predictability is key. You don't need to flood her phone every hour or repeat the same thing every day. In fact, too much repetition can feel mechanical, even performative. What matters more is that your gestures feel natural, sincere, and anchored in genuine interest. Checking in on how her meeting went, sending a voice note when you know text won't carry the tone, referencing a small detail she mentioned last week without making a big deal about it. These aren't grand declarations. They're grounded demonstrations. And the psychology behind it is simple. Humans crave reliability, not in the sense of routine, but in the sense of emotional safety. When your words and actions create that safety, her guard begins to lower. And where there's safety, there's space for emotional depth. Every interaction you have with someone leaves a residue. It's either nourishing or depleting. It either brings clarity or confusion. When your messages become a habit of presence, backed by curiosity, kindness, and consistency, they become more than words. They become a rhythm, a frequency she tunes into without even realizing it. And this invisible pattern of emotional engagement begins to shape how she experiences you. It's no longer about one message that made her think of you for a moment. It becomes a relationship where your presence echoes long after you've said anything at all. Call to action? Be the message she feels forever. So, here's my challenge to you. Stop treating communication as a checkbox activity. Start seeing it as an opportunity to deepen your connection. Take 5 minutes today to reflect on the last few messages you sent. Were they transactional or were they transformative? Did they add value to her day, or did they simply exist to fill the silence? Tomorrow, before you hit send, pause. Ask yourself, what do I want her to feel when she reads this? Then, craft your message accordingly. Make it personal, make it specific, make it timely, and most importantly, make it sincere. Remember, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present. Because the man who communicates with intention doesn't just get her attention, he earns her reflection. And that's a gift she'll carry with her long after she puts her phone down. Now go ahead, write that message, speak her language, build that bridge, and watch as your words transform into moments she'll never forget.